If I said it once this semester, I said it 100 times if the message starts with the audience. If you talk to everyone, you're talking to no one. It's like lighting. If you light everything, you're really lighting nothing.
But we backed off of all of those. We used to be on every one of them we could post on.
And why did you do that?
What do we need to be doing different on video than we're doing when we're in person? And are there any differences?
There are. I must have said so anyway about, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. And I'm like, why am I saying that so much? I never noticed I said that so much. And I'm like, I'm never going to say that again. I say this all the time. I don't know if it was turning 40. I was diagnosed with cancer twice, but I don't give a single flip anymore.
How do we build trust and credibility and belief in those conversations?
I think that it's...
Welcome to the Unconventional Leadership Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential as a leader. Thank you for joining this week's episode of the Unconventional Leadership Podcast. Today, you're in for a very special treat. We have in the studio Kathrine Nero, VP of Media at Game Day Communications. Kathrine is an expert in communications and all levels of it. So media training, camera coaching, and a variety of other things that we're going to get into today. Kathrine, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here.
Now, the other secret is Kathrine is also my cousin.
So this is a Nepo hire, basically, at this point, right? I'm a Nepo baby, as they say.
I think I've only ever had one family member in the studio, which was my father, probably in episode 30
Mike.
or 40.
Yeah, I know Uncle
Mike. So it's a real honor. And one of the things that we're doing is we want to ensure we're hitting on a variety of topics that are helpful to our listeners. And one of the things that resonates is often we discuss communications and how that shows up in teams and in organizations, and how I, as a leader, can get better communicating with my own team, which then we believe translates in how can I communicate better with my friends, my family, my community.
Yeah.
But it's talking about radical candor and crucial conversations and topics like that. And I thought, you know what? We need to have a real communications expert come in and educate our audience. So a little bit of masterclass, a little bit of Unconventional Leadership Podcast.
Happy to do it. Yes.
Awesome. So share with the audience a little bit about what you're doing now, both with Game Day and with your own brand.
So as you mentioned, I'm the vice president of media for Game Day. So what that means is I head up media relations for our clients, and we have clients all over the city, big events, Flying Pig Marathon, the Joe Burrow Foundation, Frisch's, lots of big Cincinnati icons, as I like to call them. But we also work with a lot of nonprofits, the YMCA, YWCA, Arts Wave, which is one of my favorites. And we just, what we do, and Cancer Free Kids, can't forget them either. And my job is to get them on TV. And the beauty of that is these are awesome stories that need to be told and that people need to know about. And I just, try to work my angles to try to get those stories told. So that's my day job, I'd say. Then on the side, I do camera coaching. So if there are podcasters who are starting a video podcast and are like, I'm fine on audio, but I'm not so great on camera, what do? I help those guys out. I do content creation. So for places like St. Elizabeth and others, I'll interview doctors and, share messages that their team wants shared with a certain audience.
Okay.
In my case, a certain age range of women, as we go through certain health issues. I love that end of it, that social media part of it, because, and I'm sure we'll talk about audiences and how to talk to them and all of that. But when you're talking to people on social media, they found you because something about you is like them. And that's what I love about it, because there's an instant connection there. So that's part of it. And then I also do media training as well to, help, whether it's executives, leaders, or, people who are going to be thrust in front of the media for good or bad, navigate how to answer questions and how not to answer questions really is most important, right?
Yeah. So when you start thinking about, let's get you thinking. So our audience, in most cases, are leaders who want to level up. So they found our brand or follow our brand because I always say, one day I hope unconventional leadership isn't unique and it becomes conventional. But until then, we're going to focus on unconventional leadership. Yeah. And that's really what we're training on. It's what we're coaching on. It's what we're facilitating on, is helping leaders who really want to lead uniquely different. They want to
Yeah.
be the leader that they've always dreamed about reporting to,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to set a tone inside their organization culturally that makes people really thrive here, right? How does, let's talk about how communication skill
Mm-hmm.
shows up in that type of vision. So that's our audience.
Yeah.
We want to help you be more effective in the way you deliver your message, show up in a room, show up in a conversation, or show up on screen or on
Yeah.
a YouTube video.
And those are all different,
Those are
right?
all different.
Because the thing that works one place doesn't work the other.
Okay.
And the example I always use is my one daughter was in musical theater, and the way you are on a stage is completely different for the way you're going to act and sing on camera.
Mm.
The camera's closer, the camera is more intimate. On a stage, you're having to belt to the back of the audience. So you're doing the same thing, but to totally different audiences. And that's the first thing I would say. And this is what I tell. One of the other things I do is I teach a class at UC. If I said it once this semester, I said it 100 times that the message starts with the audience.
Mm.
So when you're a leader, when you're a communicator of any sort, or a wannabe leader, or maybe one day leader, who are you talking to? If on Monday it's peers, and on Tuesday it's people who are maybe in middle management beneath you, or further down the line, maybe brand new people, entry level folks, those messages are going to be different because the audiences are different. Online, it is different. In person, it's different. Like all of these things, if it's at a happy hour, it's different. And so the first answer, or the first question as to how you communicate is, who are you communicating to, or to whom are you communicating? And so once you figure that out, your message becomes easier. And as it relates to leadership, I think that we all have had leaders that we don't want to emulate, and we've had leaders that they're parts that we do want to emulate. And if we think about it, a lot of what we love about leaders is how we're talked to. I had bosses who I spent many years in television, 25 years in television doing, morning shows, doing sports, local news, and feedback is hard to come by. Generally, when you get it, it's negative. And there were bosses that could give me negative feedback, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's actually a good note. And then there were bosses who could maybe say almost the exact same thing, but I'm like, that guy's an idiot. What does he know? Because it's the tone, or maybe it's whatever he said or she said in the background, or other things. And so I always thought about those people who could give feedback that's not positive. And sometimes it's not even negative. It's kind of in that gray area. Like, maybe try this next time. And what did they do differently? And it was about the communication and about the fact that I felt heard and understood, and not just, here is an idea I'm going to throw at you. It's going to stick or it's not. And if it doesn't, then you're wrong, I'm right. And so I think that for me, as far as leadership goes, the bosses that I look at back in time that have worked are the ones that give positive feedback as well as negative feedback, but also give it to you in a way that is consumable and not, and the message gets to the point, and not, you're not kind of beating around that bush a little bit. Yeah.
So what else is it? So you mentioned tone. There was probably a trust component.
Yeah.
My guess is you trusted the ones who gave you more critical feedback. You trusted them even more. Those you trusted more, you accepted that critical feedback easier.
I think also it's how, and again, a newsroom, it is very important to note, is not an office. It is a weird place to exist for the majority, if not almost the entirety of my adult life. It is cubicles. It is loud. People are yelling. There are hard and fast deadlines. There are 4-letter words flying every which way. And at the end of it, everybody's happy again. It's like, you got to get this on. If you're 2 seconds late, like, I literally had arguments over, this story is 3 seconds too long. I'm like, I can't cut anything. It's 3 seconds too long. I can't do it. And so we would fight back and forth. And immediately afterwards, it's like, okay, we're good now. But so understand that's the tone of what I'm working in. When people would cut through that noise and be reasonable, though firm, I think that's that sweet spot. And if I knew exactly how to do it, I would have been a boss a whole long time ago. But that's the sweet spot, is about being firm and knowing that what you're saying is not tainted by whether it's your own perfectionism or expectations that are unrealistic, or favoritism. If you know that that person's coming to you with some response, some feedback, and you know that they're coming to you from a place of, we want this, whatever this is, the office, the product, the communication to get better. I think that that's knowing your audience, going back to that earlier piece, knowing your audience and knowing that that's how you can cut through the noise.
How do you recommend people think about knowing the audience?
So again, I think that every meeting you go into is let's say you're a salesperson, you're selling the same stuff, but you're not going to sell it the same way, right?
It's to the same people.
It's to the same people. Like some people are going to have a great deal of knowledge about your product or service. Some people are going to have no idea about your product or service. Some people are not even going to know that they need your product or service. And so you have to figure out where they are and sell it that way. Like I remember in TV, we literally would build an avatar. Like our person is named Sandy. She drives a minivan. She has 3 kids and she lives in the suburbs. She takes 25 minutes to drive to, her kids to school, whatever. It was this long story. So you knew your audience. Yeah. Sandy's our audience. So when you're writing a story, you would write to Sandy. Sandy, not that every single person listening is that, but if the majority is that, you're going to kind of, you're going to find that person. The other bit of kind of like finagling your audience or figuring them out is, the term broadcast. Like the term broadcast, it is literally what it sounds like. You're casting your message to a broad audience. But in learning how to fine tune the message of all the scripts that we would write and all the ad libs that we would make, it was about, if you talk to everyone, you're talking to no one. It's like lighting. If you light everything, you're really lighting nothing. So if you talk to everyone, you're not hitting that person, that audience that you really want to get. And by doing so and niching down on that audience, at first I'm like, that's silly. No, I need to talk to everybody, right? No, you're actually finding a deeper relationship with the people who truly get what you're saying. So if you know that audience and can figure that out, and different platforms, and again, it could be in person, it could be online, it could be on camera, it could be on a telephone call, but whoever your audience is, figuring out who they are, and this is where like journalistic media training comes in, knowing the questions they might ask can really help inform the answers you're going to give.
Okay.
Like a speech and debate team. If anybody ever did speech and debate, like if you know the holes in your argument, you're going to know how to answer the holes in your argument. Same kind of thing, but but kind of the reverse.
So in a world where there's every 3 months, there's a new social media channel.
Yep.
There's email, there's phone calls, there's in-person meetings, and then all of the layering you just referenced, where there's in-person meetings in a boardroom, in a peer group, with colleagues, with individuals who report to you, with people that are new to the organization, been there a long time, all of these dynamics. And then you throw international and geographic differences. How do I, let's use this as the example. We're on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spotify and YouTube on video. We're posting shorts on LinkedIn. We've got Facebook, kind of. It's more a place personally to Instagram, not as much. There's a little bit of storytelling, but we backed off of all of those. We used to be on every one of them we could post on.
And why did you do that?
Because we believe that our target market and target audience is listening and gaining influence around our topic of unconventional leadership on LinkedIn.
So you found your audience. Your audience is on LinkedIn. So that's what you focus on. Doesn't mean then that's exactly what you should do. Doesn't mean that that people on Instagram aren't watching or listening to bits and pieces or YouTube shorts, what have you. But it means that the most of your people, the majority of your folks, are going to be on LinkedIn. And so I think you can still share the same message with Instagram, Facebook, what have you. But it's going to resonate more with the LinkedIn folks. So you don't necessarily need to do 14 podcasts for 14 social media outlets. Please no.
I was like,
please no.
Kathrine.
No. But when it comes to, those are great examples of maybe there are different parts of the interview that you would clip to put on those social media outlets. Because if there's something that relates more visually, maybe that's on an Instagram. If it's something that is business specific for like we're honing in on leadership, because you can, leadership is many things. It is absolutely a structure in a business environment, but it's also in a household environment. It's also like
Absolutely.
in the neighborhood. Hey, we call, the people down the street, the mayor of the neighborhood, right? They're a de facto leader, right?
Yeah.
So I think that there are ways that you might grab people who are interested in unconventional leadership in very many different ways that you may not have even, maybe unconventional even to you. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that, as some of our shorts that have been created in an amazing way. Thank you, Cincinnati Podcast Studio. It's like, I don't know if someone on LinkedIn would be as interested in that.
Right.
And you just gave me a total epiphany.
Well,
you may have seen it in the video. I was like,
well, good.
whoa,
I'm
oh
glad.
my gosh, that's
LinkedIn
amazing.
is one of those, it's so interesting. Like in my mind, it's so very specific. Like I get it. Like it's business. So whatever I'm doing, the business part of that, I would post on LinkedIn. And I don't post on there as much as I should, but I always say this, LinkedIn is the best. If you are looking, LinkedIn is the thing that will go viral. It's the social media outlet that you can go most viral most quickly. And what I mean by that is if I'm friends with you, yeah, I'm going to see your stuff. But if you're friends with this dude over here and that guy posts something, I'm going to see his stuff. If you've come, like there's so many more, like the Venn diagram is so much larger on LinkedIn. And the more you engage, the more like it's a really build your own adventure kind of thing. Instagram is like that to an extent, but not as much. Facebook is absolutely not like that. And so Twitter is not like that. Twitter is time-based, right? So, or X. So LinkedIn is a really interesting one. And in my mind, it makes the most sense because it's business. And so you can have something light and fluffy and happy, but if there's a business element to it, you can still post it there. Yeah. Less visual, more informative.
So let's talk a little bit about the world of video. Some people are exhausted on it. I know today I was on a conference call. I was leaning in because I got excited. Surprise. And I was talking with my hands on this video screen. And I was like, sorry, guys, I talk with my hands. And, we're on video. And I don't know if the lighting was correct. I don't know if my message, there were points in some of our discussions today that was like, oh my gosh, I'm having this moment of like, vision clarity of like, that's really why we're doing what we're doing. I mean, it was like a profound experience. What do we need to be doing different on video from a skills training than we're doing when we're in person? And are there any differences?
There are.
Are you looking for a place that you can create the content that helps market your brand? Or are you somebody who just needs a space that they can record a podcast, record talking head social content? You want to create a webinar, a course, or other content like that? Take a look at the Cincinnati Podcast Studio. We're a space built just for creators like you. Our studio here in downtown Cincinnati, located right next to all the hot restaurants in OTR, is set and ready for you. We can have up to 4 people in our studio. You can record long form, short form content. It looks awesome. The lights change colors. I mean, even there, hi, in the background. What's up there, guys? We have all the technical amenities to try and help you succeed at creating high quality content. We work on everything from subscriptions to create your own show. We do day rentals so you can create massive volumes of content and we'll just hand you all the footage. And we can even do things like limited time series where you can come in, record a bunch of episodes at one go, and then have that ready for a show to market your brand or your business. So whether you're an entrepreneur, a brand, or an author who's looking to market themselves with high quality video content, check out our website at cincinnatipodcaststudio.com and schedule a tour today.
So the number one thing is the camera sees differently than your eye. So that old adage of, oh, I'm 10 pounds heavier on camera, maybe that's true, but cameras do see differently. So that's colors, that's patterns, that's all of it. So I always tell people, and we're talking about the super important meetings, right? Like I'm not saying, if you've got a daily meeting with your team, do it where you need to do it, wear your golf shirt and be happy. But like if you got a job interview, or you've got something super important, a presentation to somebody that is like, this is a big deal. These are the tips to follow. So solid colors generally look better. This also goes for being, interviewed on television if you ever have to do that. I remember a story from when I started doing this work, it was right around the pandemic because everybody went home and hopped on Zoom. And I looked at these terrible Zoom shots and I'm like, why are they so bad? Why am I looking at people's noses? Why am I looking at the tops of their head? Why do they look like they're in witness protection program? And then it dawned on me, oh, wait a minute. They don't know how to do camera stuff. Like they don't know how to frame. They don't know how to light. They don't know how to shade. They don't know how to, and they're like, they have no idea. And so that was like my first foray into like entrepreneurship, if you will. I'm like, I'm going to teach these people how to do this. So, and I remember I was doing a seminar, like a webinar for, it was exactly this audience. It was executives who are going through training to like kind of move up into the C-suite
Mhm.
and or to do job interviews online. And like this had never happened in the executive ranks, right? To
Mhm.
do an interview online for the most part. And so but in the pandemic it was. And I remember one CEO saying, he said, when I hopped online, it was the craziest thing. I realized the intern looked better than I did because I haven't messed with my computer in so long. I had an assistant to do that, or I wasn't on a Zoom call, right?
Mhm.
Other people are on Zoom calls and then would tell me about them. And he said, I looked at my shot and I looked at how terrible it looked. And even though that had nothing to do with his business, nothing at all,
Mm.
it's the perception of quality. It's a perception of knowledge and of being able to move on with the times and all of those things. So he's like, I realized how important it was for me to look good on camera, which is such a silly thing that if you think about it, you're like, why does it matter? It doesn't, but it does because
Mm.
it's that first impression. And what I always say now is that when you're on Zoom calls, and I'm using Zoom generically, but when you're on these online calls, that's your first impression. That's that handshake across the boardroom that you used to do. You walk in, you shake the hand, firm handshake, you make eye contact and say nice to meet you. That's on Zoom now.
Mm.
So it's important to have it look right. So that's number one. But for things, simple things to remember, Mother Nature's the best lighting designer out there. Face a window. Most of us have our desk where a window's behind us. We're like, oh yeah, they'll see the view. No, it'll look like witness protection. You'll see nothing, like a darkened face and a blown out background so you can't see anything. And the whole reason this is important is because you want your message to shine. You
Mm.
don't want people to be like, what is she saying? I can't make out what she's saying. I can't hear it or can't see it, because now they're missing what you're saying. They're missing the content. So sit about an arm's length away from the computer, be about an arm's length away from your background so you don't look like it's a mugshot.
Mhm.
You can have interest in the background. You can have things in the background. I was on a Zoom call one time where there was dirty clothes in the background, and I'm like, and I guarantee you exactly what happened. She was on her phone, and when she was looking at it, she looked at it on photo and then flipped it to video to take the call, and the video is
Right.
wider than photo, and suddenly that dirty clothes is in the shot. And I'm like, I kind of want to tell her, but I'm not getting into that. But yeah, so the bottom line is it's all about that impression. In the same way that you want to wear your best suit or your best outfit when you're going to do that presentation because you're going to feel that you're best. Same thing is true when you're hopping online. And so it is important. And so the simple things are face a window. The lighting helps that way. You don't really need a mic, but if you want one, if you're in a place where maybe it's loud, you've got cubicles, something like that. The wired headphones that come with your phone are fine. If they come with your phone anymore. Also, AirPods, anything like that. I have a $29 mic that I use and it sounds fine. It sounds
Mhm.
fine. You don't have to break the bank on this stuff. And also my theory is the fewer things you plug in, the better, because then the less that can go wrong.
Yeah.
But and then frame yourself in a way that you're seeing, just watch television, see how they're framing their news anchors. It's about from the bust up, like about just below your shoulders. You want about this much room above your head. People of a certain age might remember Max Headroom, the 1980s sitcom. That's from a term that means the maximum amount of headroom
Okay.
above your head to the top of the frame. So you just want to put yourself roughly in the center to above center of the frame
Yeah.
so that people can see you, hear you, and understand you so that your message gets across.
So what about the actual delivery of my
Yeah.
message? So again, some individuals are used to speaking. I always say I never wanted to be in front of an audience
Mm-hmm.
for a long, long time until I was asked to speak at my high school graduation. And I remember that whole journey. So this is, I don't know how many years ago now, before we started podcasting.
Yeah.
And it kind of led to that because I was like, why would they be asking me? Like they could ask 1,000 other people.
Mm-hmm.
And the individual asking was like, no, we really want you to come and deliver a message. And I remember going, I've never done anything like this at this level. And then I did it and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And then it was like, maybe that is a part of the calling, right?
It
Which
is.
then led our board and some advisors said, I really think you need to start a podcast as a way to launch the brand
Mm-hmm.
of Talent Magnet Institute, which Centennial was launching, and then it went well.
Yeah.
And we've crossed over the 100,000 listens mark. And it's like, wow, people are really taking to this. People really have feedback. But yet I've had a little formal coaching, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
So you're going to make me better in this episode.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that coaching, unlike athletes, like where you can, there are specific ways to do things, right? And techniques and getting faster and better and stronger and all these things. Part of what makes this work and makes you work is that you're sitting here with no notes. You know what you're going to ask. It's a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to get so trained that you're too formal, right?
Sure.
And for some people, they do want that. That's what they want. They want to give a formal speech, and that's wonderful. I am obviously not like that. The other thing is I always tell people when they're doing speeches, whether it's just, a quick little introduction, whatever, in an event or, a press conference, anything like that, do not write it all out. In our quest to memorize and, make sure we have every note, what ends up happening if you memorize or if you have a full paragraph written out, you actually sound like you need those things to know what you're talking about. And, it makes you seem less knowledgeable about the subject than if you were to just go off the cuff and say and a couple of times. Yeah. And it's okay to say and but I think that the real key, and what I tell my students, is always, you want to be presentation you. Like, how like we're talking to friends and family on the phone, our voices are terrible and we have vocal fry and maybe we're not enunciating correctly. But then when you're giving a presentation, you're standing up straight. You're a little more formal. You're a little more again, presentation mode is what I like to call it. So that's kind of where you want to be. And you want to be the best version of yourself. So I'm a fast talker. I'm a hand talker. I'm not going to stop those things. And, every once in a while I'll run across somebody who's like, okay, I have to hold my hands like this when I do an interview on set at a TV station because I talk with my hands. I'm like, no. Talk with your hands. As long as you're not hitting your mic, which I did promise I would try not to do today. As long as you're not hitting your mic, you're in good shape because that's who you are. And in many cases, that is what's going to make you feel the most comfortable. I mentioned that last week I did a whole series of podcasts for one of the clients that we have. And I had to do a voiceover for just like a lead in. And because I had done so many, I was like not paying attention. And I listened to the voice track and I thought, that sounds terrible. Here I am, 25 years of experience. And I sound like I just woke up out of bed and was reading something. So all I did was stand up and like move my arms a little bit. And I'm like, it sounds so much better. So even something like that. So knowing yourself, if you are a person who gets more energy standing rather than sitting, do that. Like there's no rules. If you want bullet points on index cards, do that. If you want them in my case, size 28 font, so you don't have to wear your glasses, do that. Like there are no rules. You do whatever you want. When it comes to those sorts of like, whatever makes you most comfortable, it's the best version of yourself. So if again, you're a hand talker, you're a fast talker, you're a slow talker, that's fine. All of that is part of what makes you, and you just want to be the best version of that. So it changes for everybody, but there are little things you can do to improve.
Yeah, I think even the inflections that you were just literally doing as a part of the example of the difference in voice tone also could help our audience, could help me.
Yeah, one of the things you can really tell, like, how like you hear somebody on TV and you're like, oh, they must be new. And you can't really put your finger on why you think they must be new, but you are. A lot of times it's because everything is inflected up just like this. And the end of a sentence is also inflected up where you need to kind of roll that roller coaster, right? So up and down the way a conversation would go.
And methodical. Like I have experienced individuals who you see on TV, let's say on a news station, where you're like, they don't even look comfortable. They certainly don't sound comfortable. They sound like they clearly are not comfortable on screen. What you're saying is we need to be the best versions of us.
How
do we bring our energy to the discussion? How do we bring our uniquenesses, our talents, our gifts, and just our normal personal motions?
I did another podcast today, and when he hopped online, within 10 seconds, I'm like, this is going to be a great interview. It's going to be a great interview. He's got big energy, and he was like, hey, like just, and it wasn't, he was being himself. And the whole time you could tell this is just who he was. But there can also be great interviews who are super quiet, super like, thoughtful people who wait and speak and answer questions brilliantly. But the two can exist in the same universe.
Yeah.
But, and I remember thinking as I was starting that podcast today, I'm like, why do I think he's going to be a good interview? Like, what is it that he just did in the first 10 seconds? And he was himself. That's all it was, is that he was himself. And I could tell that this was not going to be tell me the questions you're going to ask. And how long is this going to be? And like, I'm like, this is just a conversation. He's like, sounds great.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mentioned to you that the confidence came with being asked. And even early on in our origin story, like our first 13 episodes, we recorded and never listened to.
Oh, wow.
Because we were trying to like put them in the bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And then once they came out, I literally had one of my best friends say, you spent like 7 minutes introducing me. I don't think you need to do that. I think you need to just let the conversation display, because they are the experts.
Yeah.
We're the ones you're inviting on, and people just want get to the value quicker.
I tell my students all the time. So again, these were sports media students. So they are all wanting to be either in front of a mic, in front of a camera, some of them behind the camera, but still in the world of sports media. And I'm like, this is so important that you understand who you are and be who you are, and don't try to act like a podcaster, act like a reporter, or act like somebody giving a keynote. You're going to be giving the keynote. Like, you're going to give that keynote however you want to do it. If there's slides, if there's music, if there's dancing, I don't know, whatever works for you. So there is no like set frame of reference for this. So, but yeah, I think that the other thing is, and I tell them this all the time too, listening back to yourself, whether you are podcasting, speaking, presenting. I talk to myself in the mirror all the time, in the car all the time. I'm constantly talking to myself. Like if I have a big speech or a big, appointment or something like that, I'm like, what would I say if they said this? And so again, I'm thinking about what questions there would be, and I'm going to figure out what my answer is going to be, and kind of boil it down to its, nutty center, as I like to say, so that like there's not a bunch of superfluous words. And listening to yourself back, watching yourself on video or listening to yourself on audio, you pick up on so many things that you might not notice otherwise. Like, again, I spent 100 million years on television, and I remember I was terrible at watching myself. And one day I decided I'm going to watch 30 minutes of this show. I must have said so anyway about, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. And I'm like, why am I saying that so much? I never noticed I said that so much. Yeah. So, and I'm like, I'm never going to say that again. And so I really try my best, like I know those filler words that I would use to like fill the silence. You'll notice those same things when you watch yourself. Like, and it could be something simple like body language. Oh, I was holding my hands and it looked like I was like wringing my hands, or I'm sitting up too straight and it looks like I'm nervous, or it's amazing what you will learn looking back at yourself or listening back to yourself. Even if you're not a podcaster or a television person. Yeah. Even if it's just something, still you've got an audience who is listening to you and watching you. So see what they see. And that really can tell you a lot, and it can help you with that message.
So what if I'm not trying to be a public, you just mentioned, I'm not trying to be a public speaker.
Yeah.
I just want to communicate more effectively to the teams that I'm on, the community roles that I serve, and just show up with more confidence. What I heard you say is that one of them is believing in yourself and who you are, and owning it. I want to encourage you to reach out to us via LinkedIn. If you don't follow myself or our organization, Talent Magnet Institute, I encourage you to click follow, send me a LinkedIn invitation. Let's connect and take conversations to a next level.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And I guarantee you that somewhere in these, how many episodes?
223.
I bet a lot of them covered imposter syndrome or parts of it. I spent 14,000 hours on television, and they say, what, you're an expert at 10, wow. 10,000. I've spent 14,000 hours on television. And I remember when I decided to start this camera consulting business, I'm like, well, what do I know? What do I know? Who am I to tell somebody how to speak on whatever? And so I think that that's part of it, that confidence. And the thing is, like, here I was on television, like I had a great job, my dream job. This is all I wanted to do since I was in 5th grade. And I was good at it. And I knew I was good at it. And I was still, I was like, no, I don't know. Do I know enough? Yes, I knew enough. And that's part of it. I think that a lot of it is internal work. This is not about how people perceive us, but sometimes it's about how we are making them perceive us by how the confidence or non-confidence we're projecting. And I mean, and so not that I should be the most confident person, but with all of that experience, like empirical evidence that I have experience and I'm good at this, I still was like, I don't know. So that's part of the problem is getting past that.
Yeah. How do I get past that?
I don't know. I tell you, I say this all the time. I don't know if it was turning 40. I was diagnosed with cancer twice, but I don't give a single flip anymore. Like I am like, I don't know what has happened. I also think, and this is a long story, but I am related to Michael because my husband and Michael are cousins. You know, Bob, he's the most confident man alive. He has never had an imposter thought in his brain. And I think after being married for 25 years, I think this is finally like, I'm getting it like by osmosis. But yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't care anymore.
It's interesting.
And I think it's like being humbled at work. I think it's, changing industries. I think it's, and then realizing, newsrooms can be a bit toxic and you are not given positive feedback and you are judged on, little numbers that come across every morning, the ratings that you get every morning that are based on, 40 people in the entire tri-state, and they dictate advertising rates and your salary and how people perceive you and all this. And it's like all of these external forces, you could be doing the greatest job in the best environment in the world, and it could still not be a success or considered a success. And so it's a very strange work life in a newsroom. And I think that stagnated me for a while and it kind of stunted my growth with that. But yeah, I don't love it or hate it. I've got confidence now. I wish I could tell you how it happened, but I have no idea. I do think experience is part of it. I think that everybody gains more confidence with experience. And the other thing is, and I said empirical evidence, and I mean that seriously. I think sometimes if you literally write down not a pros and cons list, but like, okay, what makes me good at what I do? And you start thinking about it and you're like, oh my gosh, look at all these things I've done. Look at all these people I know. Look at all these, people I've helped and things I've done along the way and improvements that I've made and programs that I've started and instituted and all of these things. I think you'd be surprised sometimes because you forget until you have to think about them. Yeah. And sometimes that can help you with that confidence piece.
Yeah, we say often humbly confident is one of our core values at our companies. And we say like we're being hired to be expert.
That's right.
And we're being hired because they believe we are the expert in whatever topic we're getting brought in for or whatever project we're getting engaged for.
Yeah.
But we want to hold humble enough that you're not coming off as arrogant.
Yes.
Right. But we are the experts in the room and all of us are experts in the domain we're doing. Whether it's even, volunteering to coach youth sports.
That's
or in your profession. So finding the confidence and then believing in yourself, it's hard. There is no magic formula. But there is a component of believing in yourself. And the reason why imposter syndrome does get brought up enough, we just had a conversation with a leader in an episode that like, he's one of the most amazing humans I know. And he even said, man, I am really outside my comfort zone right now in this area and domain that I've never thought I would be in.
Yeah.
And as his interviewer, I was like, how can he
what do I
be
do
saying
now?
that? Yeah. But I think what I would love for our listeners to hear is that believing in yourself matters.
Oh, it absolutely does.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, it's as simple as, and I know people, whether it's woo-woo, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes just putting things out there, the more you hear it, like that, just the more you hear it, the more your brain, yes, it absolutely does. Like the way we talk about ourselves, we would never talk about other people. And especially raising 2 girls, I've been very cognizant of how things are phrased. Like if I'm going to go on a diet, I'm saying I want to eat healthier. so that my knees don't hurt. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I want to lose weight because I don't want to put that out there in their minds when they were little.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're adults and, I see the confidence in both of them that I did not have.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's another thing. I do feel like that women do tend to have less confidence in the workplace, sometimes because of ourselves, sometimes because of outside factors. But yeah, I've been in many positions where even though, I was the lead anchor or whatever, I'm asked to like, will you go get coffee or will you take notes or well, where's the male anchor? Where's he? Because I want him to come up and meet this very important client. And I'm like, well, what about me? I'm chopped liver over here. But it's and I've also worked the system where we had bosses one time who, if I had an idea, it wouldn't always be used. If my co-anchor had the exact same idea, funny how that would work. So I would just feed him ideas. I would be like, why don't you say this next time? This is a great story. And he's like, remember this? Let's do this story. And suddenly we do it. So there's ways around it. And that's a story for another day. But I do think that outside forces can affect our confidence many times as women and men.
And the example you just used, we've talked about just recently
Wow.
in an episode with Tyson Betts, who's one of the most brilliant minds in the world, one of my dearest friends, one of our founding board members at Talent Magnet Institute. And he shared the same experience that he lived.
Yeah.
And it's like, how can anybody question his authority, right? He's a global expert.
Yeah.
As are, basically as are we all in many of the work we're doing.
Yeah.
Another component around interacting with others.
Mm-hmm.
So in communications, if we're not giving a speech, delivering a message, but we're just conversing, how do we build trust and credibility and belief in those conversations?
I think that it's as much listening as it is talking. Every good interviewer is a good listener, because if you're not listening to the answers to the questions you've just asked, you're going to miss follow-up questions. You're going to miss a nugget that's like, oh, that would be really good. Let me ask about that later. Or tell me more about that. And so being a good listener is huge. So whether that's the first time you're meeting somebody and they're talking about their kids, and so that gives you something to ask about, or it's something that, is someone you've worked with for a long time and, Tuesday night's their bowling night. Hey, I was bowling last night. Little things like that can make a big difference. One of the best communicators I ever worked with was Dennis Janson, and anybody from Cincinnati knows Dennis Janson. He was the dean of all sports folks, the main sports anchor in Cincinnati for just a million years, just elected into the Society of Professional Journalism Hall of Fame last year. Yeah. Denny knew everybody's name, everybody's kid's name, what soccer team they played on, their dogs' names. I swear to you, he knew everything. And that is what made him an incredible communicator. If you took his sportscast and watched it in a silo, was it the best sportscast you've ever seen? Probably not. But when he walked into a room, people gravitated to him because he not only did he remember that stuff, he wanted to remember that stuff. He wanted to remember it. He called me out of the blue a couple of weeks ago, asking for a phone number of somebody. And the next day he called me. He goes, "You didn't tell me it was your anniversary. Happy anniversary to you and Bob." And I'm like, because he saw it on Facebook or Instagram or something. And I'm like, that's like, why would I say, Denny? Oh yeah, here's the phone number. Also, it's my anniversary. Right. Like that wouldn't come. Right. But he was like, he's like, I remember going to that wedding. And so he just was incredible because he's a great listener, because he knows what people want to hear, want to talk about. Because let's be fair, what do people love talking about more than anything? Themselves. They love it. So let them. And many times that will tell you where the conversation needs to go.
And I would say the other component, which you said and what you just referenced, is he really cared.
He did.
And because he cared, he showed it. One of the ways he showed it was getting to know all the details that really mattered to him. Yeah. And everybody trusted him and built friendships with him because this guy really cares about me.
And he was real. And I think authenticity is maybe the cornerstone of all of this entire conversation. It's about being who you are, and then letting people in a little bit and letting them understand. And by doing so, you'll know who they are. They're going to be more willing to open up when they know that you are being real. And we've all seen it. Like there's, when there's people, you're like you just get a little like, I don't know about that one. And it's probably because they're not being real. Like that authenticity you cannot fake. I don't care how great of an actor you are. You cannot fake authenticity.
Yeah. So, Kathrine, you referenced a few things at the very beginning of the conversation, and you brought it up a little bit again around the impact of leaders on you throughout your career journey and how communications showed up. And then also just, like the reference of you learned as a woman news anchor, I need to take it at this particular person to this male counterpart. We've talked about that quite a bit with some of our guests. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about, like, initially, I'm assuming it upset you, and it probably still upsets you thinking about it. But at what point did you figure out I can stay in the upset, or
get stuff done?
I can start learning how to get things done? Because that's a big deal.
It
there
is.
may be people right now dealing with that.
And I'm not suggesting that that's the best way to go about it every time. But also in a world, again, newsrooms full of deadlines, when things have to get done with a quickness, I didn't have time to be petulant and, be mad about something. I still was mad. I want to be very clear. I was still mad, but I needed the thing to get done. I wanted the story to get told. And so I was willing to get that story told however it needed to get told.
Okay.
And so that was part of it. The other thing is, and this has probably both helped me and hurt me, I am vocal. I don't enjoy confrontation, which is very strange because I am very opinionated and very vocal about things. But when I see things that are not fair in the workplace, that's where I need to be vocal. And I feel like, especially toward the end of my time in TV, whether I wanted to be or not, I always would say, I'll never be anybody's boss. I'm still not anybody's boss, except, of course, my family. But I would always say that whether I wanted to be or not, I was seen as a leader because of the experience and the job that I had.
Yeah.
And I remember we were having little silly mistakes, grammatical errors, spelling errors, things that were fixable. And my theory on that was, if it is a mistake that can only happen one time, there's like, it's never going to happen again. Like this video didn't make it on time. There's no need in really getting upset about that, because that isn't its own issue and it's never going to happen again. Like that, a video down the line may not make it, but this moment will never happen again. Now, typos and things like that, grammatical errors that I would see over and over again, I'm like, we can fix this. So in our post show meeting, which we would call a post-mortem, if that tells you anything, we would, I got a whiteboard and I made a board that said, we can do gooder, because the whole joke was that it was all about grammatical errors. And so it would be a funny thing. Like, hey guys, we said it was less than 20 people today. It's actually fewer than 20 people because you can count them. If you can count them, it's fewer. And if you can't count, it's less. And so I'd draw a picture or something. And so it became a way to talk about issues that happened without blaming, and making it kind of fun. And then it would be like, oh, I found one today. I saw this. And somebody would be like, well, I didn't know you were supposed to put a comma here or whatever it was. And so it became a way that we could all look for the things that went wrong, but in a positive way, if that makes any sense. And so that's the kind of thing that I think for me has made a difference in the leadership roles that I've had. Even now, as vice president of media, we have a smaller group. A lot of us work outside of the office. There's 13 of us. We are all over the place, right? So we're not in the office as much. We're at home, we're at events, we're at whatever. But when we get together, and we talk about things, and it's a very positive environment. And I think that comes from the top down, and we're very lucky to have two incredible bosses there. And I'm very grateful to learn from them as well.
Yeah. Do you think the speed and rate in which, even as I answer the question, it's like, no, because Denny Janson, everybody loved and connected with him, and he trusted everyone. But like you mentioned the chaos of the newsroom experience probably put people on edge.
Yeah. Definitely. It's a weird mix, because you're with people at a time when people are asleep. It is a very weirdly intimate relationship you have with people when you are working together awake at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Same with viewers. I think that's why viewers connect with morning shows so much. It's because they're getting their kids ready. They're getting their breakfast. They're in their pajamas. They just got out of the shower. Like they wake up with the same people every day.
Yeah.
Our schedule may not ever be the same the rest of the day, but we generally are getting up around the same time every day and doing the same things in the morning. But yeah, to your point, I think that it is a chaotic place, but also you felt so close. You felt like family. And that's why when there would be confrontation, it was like, oh no, because the emotions are there. Like we would go to each other's weddings and like, family funerals and things like that. Like many coworkers would, but especially when, and again, for mornings in particular, it's a smaller group. The bosses aren't there yet. So it's like, it's this kind of like the inmates running the asylum kind of thing. And it was a rush and I loved it. But it was chaotic and like transitioning people who have gone, and I would not call what I do now corporate, but people who go from newsrooms to corporate, it is slamming those brakes on. It is a very different world. It is a very different world.
And yet the organization you're with, like, covers everything major.
Yeah.
Like game day is just it's amazing. All the amazing things you do in your leadership with Betsy and Jackie. And so there's got to be some pace that feels some days like 20 podcasts in a day. That just blows my mind.
You know what? You're right. There is especially being in media relations, I like to say I use my powers for good, not evil. So I know what the newsrooms need. I know that they are short-staffed. I know that there are good journalists wanting to tell great stories. And I know when they need them. And so I can be like, hey, this story is at 11 a.m. That's perfect for you because you got to have it done. So you got to have it edited and on the air by 3 because you got to anchor at 4. Like, so I can help them with that. And that rush is still there. Yeah. And we do events, and events are awesome. I love big events. I love, the Flying Pig Marathon, Kroger Wellness. Like I love them because I love Cincinnati. I'm a transplant here, but I think we do big events as well as anybody because we're a big city with a small town feel. Everybody wants to help each other.
Yeah.
And I just think that we're phenomenal at it. So I do get that rush.
Yeah.
The only real difference is in TV, we would always say there's no take home work. Like once your show is done, you are done. You don't have to do anything. A little bit different in the world of public and media relations, but I'll take it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh,
it's an honor. Thank you for saying yes to this. I want to thank everyone for joining us for this week's episode. I hope you had many takeaways, and I also would invite you to put comments. Mike, you missed following up on this question. Here's something I'd like to know more about, and I'll identify if I can get those answers for you, or we can come back for another episode. So I want to thank the Cincinnati Podcast Studio for all of their amazing creative design and bringing this episode to you each week. And we look forward to connecting with you next week on the Unconventional Leadership Podcast.